A new superstate is to be founded in Africa next year, the East African Federation. 7 previously independent states want to unite to form a single, sovereign superstate. It would be the largest country in Africa and the 7th largest in the world. In addition, the state would have over 280 million inhabitants, with the population set to rise to over 600 million by 2050 due to strong population growth in the region, far outstripping the USA. We are therefore dealing with a true megaproject here. But what is the background? Will it actually become reality next year, and would the state really be successful? We take a look at all of this in today's video. Back in the 1960s, when the majority of African states became independent, the idea of a union emerged, particularly in the East African region, in order to give the newly independent states a greater international say. At that time, however, the project failed due to differences of opinion between the various states. The first real steps were taken in 2000, when the 3 states of Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania founded a joint regional organization, the East African Community. The aim was to create a customs union, a common market, and a common currency, as well as closer cooperation at a political, social, and cultural level. In the long term, this should lead to a federal confederation of states. Burundi and Rwanda joined in 2007, and South Sudan became another member in 2016. In 2013, the members came closer to a common state for the first time when they met to negotiate a common constitution. However, the negotiations did not appear to be easy, as they were initially repeatedly postponed. The accession of South Sudan in 2016 also threw the entire negotiations into disarray, as the country was in a state of civil war at the time, and the borders with its northern neighbor Sudan were not even clearly defined. A new committee was formed in 2018, which is now working on a common constitution and is planning to introduce a common currency next year. Surprisingly, it was announced this year that the DR Congo would also be joining the Union, a country with another 90 million inhabitants and approximately 6 times the size of Germany. It is not yet clear to what extent this will affect the timetable. However, the DR Congo's accession would significantly increase the country's economic and geopolitical importance, as it would now stretch from the Indian Ocean in the east to the Atlantic Ocean in the west. In addition, the DR Congo has a huge reservoir of raw materials that could now be exported both to China in the east and to the USA and the EU in the west. But what are the other plans? The proposed capital is the city of Arusha in Tanzania, which is currently also the seat of the East African Community. It represents an important hub between the 2 economically strongest countries, Kenya and Tanzania. It is planned to introduce the East African shilling as the currency, which was already the currency of the British colonies there between 1921 and 1969. The state is to be founded according to the federal principle, similar to Germany. The 7 states would then be federal states in their own right. However, exact details have not yet been published. This raises the question of how realistic the project really is. On the one hand, it must be said that the states have repeatedly set themselves ambitious goals to achieve a common constitution, which have so far been repeatedly missed. For example, a constitution was supposed to be in place by 2021, but the negotiations still don't seem to be over. Of course, it is not easy to find a consensus between so many different states, and the accession of the DR Congo has certainly thrown a few things out of kilter. On the other hand, great progress has already been made in achieving an East African customs union and establishing a common market. In addition, East Africa is one of the regions with the strongest economic growth in the world, and the ambitious goals seem to have created the will to implement the project in the individual countries. Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and Rwanda in particular are regarded as up-and-coming nations that could also help the very poor states of Burundi and South Sudan to prosper in a joint alliance and boost the DR Congo's great economic potential. Incidentally, the average age of the superstate would be 17.8 years, which would of course be incredible potential for the future. A merger of the 7 states could therefore make perfect sense and could lead to a strong economic and political bloc in Africa, which would also drastically increase the geopolitical influence of the region. The current timetable is probably too ambitious, and it seems unlikely that the state will be founded as early as next year. In addition, it is of course still unclear whether the states can actually agree on a common constitution. But if it works, the East African Federation would certainly have a lot of potential.